I spent 6 months designing a product pitch. My boss said, "You're not client material. You don't smile enough." She gave my pitch to her niece and sent me to fetch coffee. I delivered the coffee, with a thumb drive hidden in the cup sleeve. By the time they realized the files were corrupted, I'd already scheduled a private meeting with their biggest competitor about. I've been sitting with this story for a while now. At first I told myself to forget it, that it was just work, just business. But I can't let it go, because it was personal. It still stings, and even though I technically came out okay in the end, I can't pretend it didn't mess with me. I was at this marketing tech company for just under 3 years. Started as a data analyst, then moved into strategy. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't loud. But I was reliable. I got results. I stayed late when no one asked me to, and I kept my head down when people took credit for my work. I thought if I just kept doing a good job, eventually it would pay off. 6 months before everything fell apart, I came up with an idea for a client platform. It would have let our B2B customers customize their entire onboarding flow without having to touch code. Simple drag-and-drop UI, some light AI integration for behavioral tracking, and a dashboard that updated in real time. I built it out slowly, piece by piece. I made sure every part was backed by real data, things I pulled from our past campaign metrics, stuff our clients complained about, things that didn't work in the current systems. I spent so many nights on that thing I stopped seeing most of my friends. When I finally brought it to Renee, my boss, she barely looked at it. She waved it off, said it was a little too complex and not something our base is asking for. But then a few days later, I overheard her pitching the concept to another director as something our team was working on. That was my first red flag. But I was so used to being invisible that I just swallowed it. Over time, she started asking for more updates. Wanted access to my decks. Wanted to sit in on rehearsals. She started inviting other people to watch my dry runs, and every time, she'd sit at the front, nodding like she'd thought of it all. I didn't push back. It felt too risky. I needed this win. About 2 weeks before the official pitch to a major potential client, a global SaaS company we'd been chasing for a year, she stopped asking for updates. Just silence. I sent her my final materials. No reply. I followed up again. Still nothing. Then, for days before the meeting, she booked a calendar invite titled Final Pitch Prep. I showed up in the boardroom, dressed sharp. I'd practiced the pitch at least a dozen times. I had backup slides, client persona cheat sheets, even little printouts with FAQs and usage stats. I was ready. It felt like it was finally going to happen. Then she walked in with Alina, her niece. I'd met Alina maybe twice before. She was technically a marketing intern, but she didn't have a desk. She floated between departments. Always wore clothes that looked more suited for a music festival than an office. Always had her phone out. Once I saw her ask our design lead what a vector file was. She wasn't dumb, just wildly unqualified. Renee sat down across from me, looked at the table, then looked at me like she was bored. "We've decided Alina will be handling the pitch." That's all she said. No warning. No apology. Just dropped it like it was normal. Like I was being reassigned a task, not erased from something I built from nothing. She kept going. Said I wasn't client-facing enough. That I was too analytical. That Alina had a warmer presence. Then she smiled like that made it okay. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My throat was tight, and my hands were shaking, and all I could think about was how stupid I'd been to trust her. How every late night, every skipped dinner, every time I let her take credit, it all meant nothing. She didn't respect me. She never did. She just saw me as a tool. Someone to mine ideas from and toss aside when she didn't need me anymore. Then she told me to go grab coffee. Like I was the intern now. I walked to the cafe 2 blocks away. I stood in line. I ordered her Americano and Alina's chai. I paid out of pocket. Again. And then I walked back slowly, holding the tray with both hands. But before I walked into the building, I took out a small thumb drive from my pocket. I'd used it earlier in the week to transfer some large demo files home. I wrapped it in a paper towel and slipped it into the cardboard sleeve around Alina's cup. I knew she wouldn't check. She never checked. She'd asked me the day before to just send over the final files, which I'd done. Only, the version I sent her wasn't real. It looked real. The slides were there. The branding. The talking points. But I'd swapped out the embedded video demos with dummy files. Same length, same file names, but blank after 5 seconds. If she opened the deck ahead of time, she might notice. But I was betting she wouldn't. I was betting she'd wing it, because she always did. I handed her the coffee. She thanked me, barely looking up. Then they left for the pitch. And I walked across the street to another building entirely, one I'd scheduled a private meeting in 2 days earlier. Inside was the executive team of our client's biggest competitor. And I was about to show them the real thing. The meeting with the competitor went better than I expected. I didn't give them the whole pitch right away. I started slow, showed the core idea, the analytics, the design strategy. They asked good questions. They paid attention. I told them I built it myself and had every file, every prototype, every piece of research. I didn't lie. I just left out the part about how I used to work across the street. They asked what I wanted. I said I wanted a home for the product and a role where I could build it properly. I didn't ask for a title. I didn't ask for money. I just asked to own what I built. They said they'd call back. I left their office calm. Not excited. Not scared. Just calm. Like I'd finally stopped waiting for someone to pick me. Like I'd picked myself for once. I turned off my phone for the rest of the day. When I turned it back on that night, I had over 30 messages. First from coworkers. Then from Renee. Apparently, the pitch with Alina went bad fast. The presentation loaded, but the videos wouldn't play. She tried to talk around it, but the clients asked specific questions about features only shown in the demo. She fumbled. Froze. Then tried to call me mid-meeting. I didn't answer. I was already home, watching the rain hit my windows. Renee panicked. She tried to salvage it herself, but she didn't know the tech details. She didn't know the strategy. She knew buzzwords, but not the bones underneath them. The client asked to reschedule. That was a bad sign. The next morning, she called me into her office. She didn't yell. She didn't even ask why I wasn't there. She just stared at me and said, "What happened?" I stared right back. She asked again. I shrugged. Then she said something that pissed me off more than anything else. "I trusted you. Like I was the one who broke something sacred. Like it wasn't her who cut me out, lied, used me, humiliated me." She told me I needed to send her a clean copy of the working files before the follow-up meeting next week. No apology. No ownership. Just an order. Just like always. I told her I didn't have them anymore. I had deleted everything. Even the backups. She stared at me like she couldn't believe it. I didn't say another word. That night, Alina tried to message me on Instagram. She asked if I could explain the user flow thing again because she forgot how it worked and Renee was freaking out. I left it on read. A few days later, I heard whispers that someone from the client company had filed a complaint about the pitch. They said it was unprofessional and poorly prepared. Word got around fast. Suddenly, I wasn't being invited to meetings anymore. My calendar started looking empty. Renee stopped CCing me on anything. I was still technically employed, but it felt like I didn't exist. People in the office either ignored me or looked at me funny. A couple even asked quietly if I was okay. I stopped going in early. Stopped staying late. I showed up at 9. Left at 5. Sat at my desk and did the bare minimum. No one said anything. Then, 2 weeks later, I got an email from the competitor. They wanted to move forward. They offered me a position. They wanted the product. They were ready to launch. But here's where it got complicated. Renee found out. I don't know how. Maybe someone saw me go into their building. Maybe someone overheard something. All I know is the next day I was called into HR. Renee had filed a formal complaint. She said I'd stolen proprietary material. Said I'd shared company intellectual property with a direct competitor. Said it was industrial sabotage. The same pitch she stole from me. The same files she tried to hand to her niece. She wanted me fired. Worse, she wanted to sue. And just like that, things got very real. HR said they had to investigate. They said I'd been accused of breaching contract, misusing company property, and leaking materials to a competitor. I sat there and listened. My hands didn't shake this time. I'd already played the worst parts over in my head. They asked if I had anything to say. I said, it was mine. They blinked. I explained, slow, calm, no emotion. I said I had the original design documents, dated. I had emails from 6 months ago where I shared early mock-ups. I had Slack messages, drafts, even voice memos. I had timelines, file histories, survey results I paid for myself, even photos of whiteboards I used at home. Everything was timestamped. I also said I was never under an NDA for that product because Renee never filed it. It was supposed to go into review, but she sat on the paperwork. Maybe she thought it didn't matter. Maybe she thought I'd never fight back. They told me to wait for a decision. While I waited, I got a message from someone in legal. Quiet, off the record. He said I should check the project logs on our shared drive. Said something didn't add up. I logged in, went to the admin dashboard, looked at the pitch files. And there it was. 3 days before the client presentation, right after I'd handed over the fake files, someone had logged in and replaced the folder metadata. Rewritten authorship. Removed my name. Set the owner as Renee. Not in a casual way. In a very deliberate way. The logs even showed the IP address, her office. She tried to erase my authorship from the company system. That's when I realized something deeper was going on. She wasn't just trying to steal credit. She was trying to rewrite history. She wanted to make it look like I was a thief, when really I was the one who got robbed. I printed the logs. Printed the emails. I made 3 folders, one for HR, one for legal, one for me. I dropped them off the next morning. Said nothing. Just slid them across desks and walked out. A few days later, I was officially suspended. They said it was pending review. Said it wasn't disciplinary, just protocol. But I knew what it really was. A pause. A silence before the blow landed. Only it never came. Because 2 days into my suspension, someone else cracked. One of the junior developers, Miguel, came forward. He had been brought in last minute to help Alina fix the pitch files after they failed in front of the client. He told HR that when he looked at the corrupted presentation, it was obvious the files weren't broken by accident. He said it looked intentional, like someone had set it up to fail. And he told them something else. Renee asked him to find proof that the sabotage came from me. Not to investigate. Not to figure out what happened. Just to pin it on me. He refused. That cracked everything open. HR reopened the investigation, this time focused on her. Turns out it wasn't the first time Renee had done something like this. There were quiet reports. Old complaints that went nowhere. Times she took projects from junior staff. Times she looped in family members. But nobody had ever pushed back hard enough. Until now. I was still suspended. But she was too. Then another twist. Alina quit. No warning. She wiped her desk clean on a Sunday. Left behind a letter that simply said, I wasn't qualified for any of this. People started talking. The office wasn't loud, but the silence was different. Everyone walked slower. Meetings got canceled. One guy from sales asked me privately, did you really do it? I said, do what? He said, crash the pitch. I just shrugged. Then another email came. This one from the competitor. They'd spoken to their legal team. They reviewed everything I sent them. They asked for one more call to finalize terms. I said yes. While my old job tried to tear me apart, my new one was ready to build something real, with me at the center of it. But I still wasn't free yet. Because Renee wasn't done. And I knew she'd come back harder. A week into the investigation, I got a letter at home. Not an email. A real envelope. Stamped, with my name typed on the front. It was from Renee's lawyer. Inside was a cease and desist. She was accusing me of defamation. Said I'd told lies about her to external partners. Claimed I'd harmed her career with malicious intent. The letter warned that if I didn't retract what I said to the competitor company, they would consider further legal action. I didn't react right away. I just sat there, reading it over and over. I wasn't surprised. This was who she was. She didn't back down. She escalated. Even when she was losing. The problem for her was, I had receipts. I forwarded the letter to my new company's legal team. I hadn't signed anything with them yet, but they already had skin in the game. They told me not to respond directly. They said, "We'll handle this." That same afternoon, HR from my old company called. They said Renee had tried to log into the shared drive again, after her suspension. She used someone else's credentials. IT flagged it. The credentials belonged to a part-time admin who hadn't been in the office for days. She stole their login, used it to download files tied to other projects. Not mine, other people's. When they confronted her, she denied it, said it was probably a mistake. But the access logs didn't lie. That's when things shifted. An emergency board meeting was called. I wasn't invited, but people talk. Someone told me she cried during the meeting. Not out of guilt, out of rage. She said she built this team from scratch, and she was being framed. But no one was buying it anymore. The cracks were everywhere. Old emails surfaced. Times she overruled decisions. Times she pushed out junior staff. A few people even came forward with emails where she instructed them to remove certain names from team projects, mine included. One of those emails had been blind copied to the CEO. That's what finally did it. 3 days later, they fired her. No party. No goodbye. Just a locked account and an empty office. Someone packed her things into a cardboard box and left it near reception. No one touched it for 2 days. But even then, I didn't feel relief. Because Renee wasn't the only one who'd burned me. The company let it happen. They all saw her take credit. They watched her push her niece forward. No one said a thing. They left me to drown when she came after me. So when HR emailed to say I could return to work, I didn't answer. When my manager offered to clear the air, I ignored it. They wanted to reset. Pretend none of it happened. But it did happen. I lived it. Alone. Every step. A week after Renee was fired, my new job sent over the contract. It was better than I expected. Full ownership of the product. A team to build it with me. A title that finally meant something. I signed it the same day. But I wasn't done yet. Because there was one more thing Renee didn't know. That corrupted file she used for the client pitch? It didn't just crash the demo. It logged the IP address of the first device that tried to open it and uploaded a full access record to a private server I'd set up weeks earlier. I had proof she stole it. Proof she tried to pass it off as hers. And now that she was no longer protected by her title, I was ready to use it. But not for court. For something worse. I didn't go back to the old office. I didn't need to. The day after I signed the new contract, I sent one last email. Not to Renee. Not to HR. I sent it to the client, the one we were supposed to pitch to. The one Renee and Alina embarrassed themselves in front of. The one I built the entire product for. I told them the full story. Not the petty version. Just the facts. The timeline. What I made. What happened to it. Who tried to take it. I included copies of the original documents, emails, and the server log that captured Renee's IP trying to open the tampered file. At the bottom, I said, if you're still looking for a solution, I'd like to show you what this product was meant to be. I didn't expect anything, but they replied within an hour. They thanked me, said the story lined up with what they experienced, said they had suspected something was off but didn't want to get involved. They agreed to a meeting, now under my new company's name. The same pitch I was shut out of, I gave it 2 weeks later. In a better suit, with a better team behind me, and with every piece of the product working like it should. They signed within days. It wasn't just a contract. It was a statement. The client called my old company and told them they were done. No second chance. No repitch. They wanted nothing more to do with them. That one decision triggered a chain reaction. The board held a full review. They found other contracts that were mishandled, client relationships lost. Renee's influence had reached deeper than they realized. A few directors were pushed out quietly. 2 managers resigned. Even the head of HR was restructured. By the end of the quarter, 5 people had either been fired or walked out. The department was gutted. I didn't have to do anything. They collapsed from the inside. But Renee? She tried to get back up. 6 months later, I saw her name pop up on LinkedIn. She listed herself as consultant with vague achievements and no company listed. I clicked through her activity. She'd been applying to jobs, high-level ones. None stuck. A recruiter I knew told me off the record that her name came up in a background check. The word plagiarism was used. So was IP theft.
She was toxic now.
Her niece moved cities. Last I heard, she took a job in retail and deleted all her socials.
Me?
I stayed quiet, focused on the work, built the product the right way this time. My name was on every slide, every patent application, every announcement. But I'd be lying if I said I walked away clean. I lost sleep for weeks. I became cold. Even after I won, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd lost something I used to like about myself. That part of me who just wanted to build things, who didn't care about credit, who thought being good was enough. That person's gone now. The product launch went well. The money came in. The promotion followed. And one morning, I walked past a coffee shop and saw someone who looked like Renee sitting by the window. Alone. No laptop. Just staring at her drink. I didn't stop. She never looked up. But I did wonder, for just a second, what she'd say if she saw me now. Probably nothing. She'd smile that fake smile. And I'd smile back, because now I know how.